Hey everyone, welcome to Throwback Thursday. Today I have the LEGO 6821 Shovel Buggy set from 1980. It's this tiny little set right here. This is what the boxes used to look like. And interestingly enough, if you fold this flap like this, you will see that this is actually made in Ontario, Canada, interestingly enough, by Samsonite. LEGO does not do that anymore, but it's interesting to see they used to do that. And it's also under the LEGOLAND brand, so that's interesting to see. Just to compare the size of the box with another recent set that I reviewed and built without instructions on my channel, here's a look at two boxes. So here's a standard $10 US, $15 Canadian set from 2024 versus what the set would look like back then. This one has 99 pieces, this one has 23 pieces, which it's much smaller in size. So yes, LEGO was cheaper back then, but also like a lot of the sets were much smaller. So this would be a poly bag today, or not even a poly bag. So without further ado, let's open the box and see what's inside. Oh, I got this used, by the way. It's pretty old, so it's hard to get this set new without paying tons and tons of money for it. So I will open it for the first time here on camera. You can see here like some stuff they print on the box that they don't do anymore. You can see also Interlego. I wonder if that's LEGO's old legal name, or maybe it's a subdivision of LEGO, I don't know. You get a Ziploc bag that the seller has used instead of the original bags, which is fine. You do get this instruction sheet. So there's so few steps, it doesn't even need to be an entire book. As usual, I will build the set without the instructions, but then later I will look at the contents of the instructions just to see what's there. But for now, I will rely only on this picture here, which is the same as what is shown on the box. The included minifigure is in excellent condition, especially for its age, which either means it has not been played with too much, so it's been kept safe, or it's a minifigure made out of replacement parts. So the same parts as the ones that would be used in 1980, but just more modern versions of them, because all these parts except for the helmet, you can get identical versions of them today, and the helmet is the one with a thin chin strap. To show you what I mean by that, I'll introduce the same minifigure but with the new helmet. So you see here the thicker chin strap here versus the thinner one on the old one. That's how you can tell the difference between old and new. Other than that, everything else is identical. There's maybe minor differences in the print here, but like this one, this circle is a little bit smaller than this one here, but still pretty much the same idea. And the smile here is just a little bit thinner. I'm not sure if that's easy to notice, but in person you can barely notice. Also, here there's a dimple on the helmet, whereas here there is no such dimple. Instead, there's just a small sprue mark. So yeah, there's tiny little differences that most people are not going to pay attention to. Otherwise, it's a pretty nice figure, and the color is perfectly white here. It has not been discolored at all, so that's pretty good to see. And I hope that the new classic space minifigure that I got recently will also not get discolored and not lose the gold printing either. But as a reminder, the set only includes this one, and this one is sold separately. Alright, we're done with the build. It's very simple. What you see is what you get here. This thing is interesting, and the hinges that it uses that are no longer in use today, you can articulate pretty well. And this thing is on a ball joint, so it can swivel. This thing can rotate like this, but it's a bit stiff. But again, this is from many years ago, so I want to be a bit kind to it. You can go all the way down like this, all the way up. This kind of reminds me of an elephant trunk, so maybe you could use these pieces to recreate an elephant if you so choose. There's a couple of these yellow studs, just 1x1 plates that are used here just as cargo, something that we're collecting from this planet. And we have these pieces here that are either horns or lights or sensors, however you want to interpret them. Standard steering wheel has been around forever, but back then it was relatively new. They have this walkie-talkie, which is still the same piece that is used to this day. Like I got this in a set from not that long ago, like one that I reviewed in the past few days, and this piece is pretty much the same with some very minor differences. It's pretty amazing to me. Like since the 1970s, LEGO's been doing the same thing. Yes, many things have changed, many new molds, many new pieces, many new colors have been added, but some of the basic stuff, like the minifigure itself, has stayed the same, and it just looks so good to see. Of course, this can roll backwards and forwards quite comfortably despite the age. And I will point out that here it's using these metal axles that are no longer in use on modern LEGO sets. But back in the old days, they used to have these. So yeah, rolls forward quite nicely, turns easily as well. There's this printed piece back here that represents a console. So there are no stickers in the set, it's all printed, but there's only one piece that's printed. And yeah, that looks pretty advanced for that era. If you wanted to bring a friend on this thing, like if you had other minifigures, you would need to make them stand or sit right here. Maybe you could move this over like this. yeah, you can make that work, or they could be here on the side. So it's designed for one figure, but if you really want to, or you could sit here as well. If you really want to, you can make it fit 2 or 3 if you're being very precarious. Now let's look at the back of the box. So here there are other potential builds that you could make with the same pieces. This is very similar to the main build, but you just make it lower to the ground, you move some pieces around to turn it into more of a buggy. This is more of an autonomous vehicle. You see, like, just with these pieces, like, they give you ideas on the back of the box to basically tell you, don't just build what the instructions tell you, actually build your own stuff out of these pieces. And LEGO used to be really good at that in the past, and more recently they've been less good at that, unfortunately. They just tell you, here's the instructions, build the instructions, and then you're done. Whether that's for the adult 18+ sets or even for the sets that are intended for play by kids. So speaking of the instructions, let's have a look at them now that we finished the build. So on the back here, we got a better look at those alternative builds, and there is no instructions for them, and you don't really need instructions for them. You can figure it out just by looking at the picture. You should be able to figure it out. So that's pretty interesting to see. Just to keep the video short, I won't be building all of them today, but if you're interested in a particular build, comment down below, and maybe I'll build it in a future episode. There's some copyright stuff here that says Canadian something, made in Canada, printed in Canada. It's interesting to see, especially since I'm in Canada. And let's have a look at the instructions themselves. So putting the minifigure together, that's not even a step. It's done just like in these 2 pictures. And then they actually tell you to build it upside down using 5 steps. Yeah, in 5 steps, you've built the whole thing. And what's interesting is that if this set was sold today, they would make it like 23 steps. Like every single piece would be its own instruction step. So it's interesting that back then you could build it in 5 steps, and I think even this is too much. Like most kids should be able to build it in 3 steps or less. Like you could start this as being step 1. You could pretty much see everything that's here without even, like there's nothing even that's hidden here. It's pretty self-explanatory. But that's just me though. Alright, that's my look at the LEGOLAND set 6821. What are your thoughts on this set? Do you like it? Do you dislike it? Do you have any ideas for future Throwback Thursdays that I could review? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for tuning in to Versatile Fun Designs, and I'll see you all in the next one.